You're listening to Joe Dalton on Dublin South FM, Crossing the Rubicon.
Good morning, Leslie, or good afternoon. Welcome to the
Hey,
show again. Again,
it is good to be here with you again, Joe. How are you doing?
good. Third time lucky. Third time
Yes.
lucky. This is it. Um,
hmm
we've been bouncing backwards and forwards on Facebook. Uh, Strange things are happening in the world. A lot of it, you couldn't make it up. I think everybody that's starting to awaken are starting to realize what is real and what is make believe. And that goes into one of the things which is, especially in Ireland, is the US election. Uh, what's your thoughts on how we are moving from a crazy world? Because we actually spoke in 2020, the beginning of it when COVID came out, actually, and now we're speaking at the end. What's your thoughts on what's happened in the year?
Well, it's been a very exciting year for sure. um, an interesting year. I think a lot of revelations, to use a big word, have occurred for a lot of people. I am excited, thrilled, honored, blessed to be alive at this time, I think, to witness what is going on and to participate in what is going on. I know it's scary for a lot of people. So be it. Awakenings are always a little thrilling, if not scaring. But I believe that it is an exciting and wondrous time to be alive. And I'm pleased to be a part of what's going on, doing my little bit that I can to participate. And I'm just positively expectant, confidently expectant that we will come through this period of supposed difficulty into a bigger, brighter, bolder future.
You said it there, that, when we spoke, just mentioned it about the awakening. And I believe to people to awaken, you have something dramatic has to happen in your life.
Yes.
It can be a death of someone, or it could be a nervous breakdown, or it could be some sort of psychological slap in the face. And I think this year with COVID, I think that is the dramatic change that has woken up so many.
Yeah. Well, on a personal level, I mean, if you look at the writings or have been in conversation with people who have had a personal awakening or a sense of, going through a period of enlightenment, you will find as you talk to them or read their work that they have each gone through a period called typically the dark night of the soul. And that sometimes is, like you said, because of a death of a loved one or a traumatic experience that one undergoes or whatever. But there is this period of, going through this dark night of the soul. And, even in the um, stories of Jesus in the Bible, uh, you know, immediately after his crucifixion, he descended into hell before elevating up to the glory of heaven. And in Dante's Inferno, you see the same thing, the descent into the chaos and the pain and the suffering, and then the elevation through that up into the enlightenment. So that is basically what an individual goes through in the process of enlightenment. But I think if we look at the society, global society in this case, as a whole, I think we can reference that process by what we've gone through in 2020. And I love the fact, that 2020 is like clarity of vision. Um, but, if we look at the whole process of going through this dark night of the soul, this mess that 2020 has been for so many people with this pandemic and with the, related trauma in the United States with the elections and all of that kind of stuff. we're going through this same kind of psychological process, and I believe at the other end is the awakening, the great awakening that many people, not everybody, but many people will get to participate in.
Yeah, I had my great awakening, and it's what my TED talk is based around, and realizing it's all outside that causes that effect, and it's like being that rebirth, breaking away from the spell, and realizing none of that matters. It's all what goes inside. And even when you mentioned about Jesus being crucified, we talk about, Jesus came here to protect us or against our sins, and he really didn't. I believe that he came here to teach us about our thoughts. Our
Mm.
thoughts aren't ours, and our thoughts have power. And if you use them in such a way, they can create, magical things. And we don't realize the power that we have. So we can't accelerate the power that we have as a human collective.
Well, yeah, I mean, fundamentally, all things arise out of consciousness, right? So an awakened consciousness is capable of creating not just their individual lives, vibrational content, but having an impact on the collective consciousness of humanity. So those folks out there that are control freaks or psychopathic personalities that like to think that they have the right to be in charge of the world and where the world is going are basically afraid of the awakening of enough individual human beings on the planet to their own power to be sovereign human beings in charge of their own destiny, so that they use the tools that they have available to them, the media and the governments and the bureaucracies and the global corporations and whatnot, to intentionally suppress the awakening of the individual human being. So to their power to create through their method of thinking, their emotional content, the way that they go about being in the world. So that's part of what we're seeing unfold, and we're part of what we're seeing revealed, right? That people are waking up to the lies that they've been told, to the illusion that they've been fed, to this narrative that's been spun out there for them. Lots and lots of people are waking up to the falseness of it, and are peeling back the curtain and peering beyond it, if you will. So that's kind of the process that we're going through right now.
It's definitely, peeling back the layers, and I don't accept anything now as face value. Nothing. You know, I believe everything is possible. If someone says something to me, I'll look at it and go, what I've discovered, I've learned over the last couple of months, you're probably right. But I'm not going to just listen to what you're saying, and I'm going to go on that research. And I've learned a couple of things. You said about, the powers that be. So say mainstream media is one of the things. And what I've learned is they may say one thing, but if you go beyond the mainstream message, you'll find literally hundreds of people who have done the investigation as well and are telling the truth. And I think that's where one of the biggest things of the awakening is happening, that the shackles are being removed step by step by a lot of people, and all these other things then started all fall into place, and it just blew up. And the more it blew up, I realized there is this power vacuum. I would say have the rest of us cocooned in a world of as their puppet.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's not just, recently. It's the historical situation for, going on for centuries, Joe. It's not a recent thing. It's not that the bad guys just appeared in this generation, or, the last couple of generations, or even in the last century. This is like a historical story, that, there have been people who elevated themselves, for whatever process, political or whatever, and get into a position of power and find out that the best way to keep themselves in power and enjoy all the pleasures of that life can offer them is to suppress and hold back other people and keep them controlled to do their bidding, if you will. So, they built kingdoms, and they built companies, and they built empires over the years, and found out that if they keep the people, on the lower levels of Maslow's hierarchy of development, they're easier to control. And the fear mechanism is the easiest way to control people. If you keep them afraid of, some boogeyman in the closet, whether it's communism back in those days, or in today's world, pandemic virus. If you keep people afraid, they're easier to control. They're easier to manipulate. You push them into, fear of survival mode, and they're not going to think or work towards any kind of self-actualization. And as a consequence, the people who are in the power positions are not threatened by a whole mass of people who are self-actualized sovereign human beings who are saying, hold on a second, this is my life, I'm going to live it my way. So, now that, we've reached this point in time where a lot of this stuff is being revealed, and people are seeing, some of the bullshit going on, the falseness of a lot of the stories is coming to the forefront, and even the downright evil stuff that's been going on the planet is being revealed to people. And as ugly as it is, and as difficult as it is for people to look at, that revealing opens people up to say, just a second, I don't want to participate in this anymore. I'm not buying it, excuse me, not buying into the story. And I'm going to start looking at what's real for me. What my truth is, what my power is, what my potential is to become as much of a person as I can become, move towards becoming a self-actualized human being. And I think that's, the good stuff that's coming out of this past
Good
year.
stuff. Yeah, I think I have to blame you actually for sending me on this.
Well, that's okay. I
Why?
have wide shoulders. You can blame me for whatever.
The Taylor Marshall wrote a book, The Infiltration of the Vatican, which goes back about 200 years. So the only way is infiltration. And that was it. And that infiltration idea goes all the way back from Julius Caesar, who knew when they were trying to do anything, the only way to do it was infiltrate over centuries. So history is, I can say to anyone that's listened to the show today, is if you really want to find out about something, look at your history.
Yes.
Look at the history, look deep into the history, because there is where you will find the answers. Historians who really delve into it, who've done the research. And there's like an example, we were educated all our lives in Ireland that it was a famine. It was a famine. But it wasn't, only in probably the last decade, we realized it was genocide. Because of, there was the main food, which the peasants ate, was potatoes, but there was other foods, and they were all packed up to feed the British Army,
Mm-hmm.
So look at history. But what I'm feeling now, as in we come into 2021, and all this stuff is turning up, and there's I sometimes still bang my head against the wall when I see people don't get it. They've had 12 months to get this, and they still don't get it. And I think there's one big wave is going to come in the next couple of months or so, that the demolition guys are in. That's what it is. It's the demolition guys are in. They're breaking everything up. We're only seeing the beginning of this. And the construction crew, the plumbers, the painters, the carpenters that are coming in next are the ones that are going to rebuild. And that's people that get it. The people that have awoken will be writing the history and the future for the generation. As I said to someone the other day, is going to be written in for our children's children.
Mm-hmm. Well, I like that analogy, like the everyday working person, the plumbers and the electricians and the masons and stonemasons, I should say, and all of these basic, hardworking, everyday people are building the edifice, the new edifice of the society as we move forward. And in these days, you're right, it is the people who, call them light workers, if you will. It's, it's kind of an airy fairy new age kind of term. But, it is the people who have taken it upon themselves to speak their individual truths out into the world and to express themselves in a way that they think is beneficial to their fellow human beings, to wake them up, if you want to use that term, or to provide them with information about themselves and their own individual power to self-actualize. And, these kind of people are the plumbers, if you will. I like that analogy. To build the new edifice that we need to build to move forward into, the collective future that we want to build for humanity, that we have the potential to become, like galactic beings, if you will, go out and explore not just our solar system, but the remainder of the universe, and explore the, external and the internal, go within as much as we go without. In order to become all that we're capable of becoming, that explore that consciousness that resides within us and is expressed out as the universe, the universe being a construction of consciousness itself. So to become aware of our individual aspect of that global universal consciousness, and utilize that understanding to come into the wholeness of ourselves as individuals and as a culture, as a society, as a species, and reach toward the stars, if you will. I think that's where we're going with this. If we don't, in this process, self-destruct, get lost in some sort of psychotic break as we go through this dark night of the soul, which is always, potentially there, because lots of people who go through that process get stuck in that hell, if you will. They don't escape from it. They don't emerge into the enlightenment part of it. But for the most part, I think we can be optimistic about where we're going. We just have to go through the bit of a tough sledge here. And there's only, I think, a very limited amount of time left in this. The whole idea of the collective consciousness of humanity and the way paradigms have changed over history. It only takes a certain number of people within a culture to start expressing, speaking about, writing about, talking about, creating art and artifacts out into the world to change an entire culture, a perspective, shall we say, of an entire culture. If you look at history, it's, somebody comes along and starts speaking, and the next thing 100 people or 1,000 people say, oh, wow, look at what he's saying. That's exactly the way we should be looking at things. And then the whole culture changes. That's happened time and time again throughout, our history as human beings, is that culture has gone through a complete paradigm shift simply because a limited number of people within that culture have changed their minds about something, right? Whatever that might be. The earth is flat, the earth is round, whatever. So we don't need to say that the whole world needs to wake up in this time right now to see the reality of what's going on. It's only a certain percentage. I don't know what that percentage is, what the tipping point is, or what the 100th monkey effect is, or whatever language you want to use. I don't know what that is, but it is not the whole world that has to come into a new perspective of things. It's just a certain percentage of people, and maybe we're already there, but if not, we're damn close.
So, yeah. But isn't it great that, like, I speak to people in India, you're dialing in from Canada, people in Australia, and all these people around the world who I would have never had a conversation with them because I didn't think they were ready to have that conversation, even about God or religion or spirituality or this, the Great Awakening. I'm having them with them, and they're saying to me, isn't this amazing that we're having this conversation, that we're openly talking about this now, which is amazing. One of the things you said there about exploring the universe and going out, and there's a big talk now, as about UFOs, and it seems the mainstream media is talking about this, and they're even, there was this Israeli general was talking about it, that there's this, they've had conversations, America has had conversations with the galactic force. They're so advanced, they were coming here way before us. They've been here well in advance before us. We're just here along for the ride on it.
Well, I'm keeping an open mind on that. I always have kept an open mind on that, because it's better to have an open mind than a closed mind. Typically, so that you don't get shocked into trauma. Like if all of a sudden the spaceship lands on your front lawn, you don't want to fall apart completely psychologically. You want to be able to say, well, that's cool, instead of going like, oh my God, the Martians are coming, like the old Orson Welles thing. But it's nice to fantasize about galactic federation of saviors or whatever coming to save humankind from its own follies, but I think the responsibility lies on us, and we can't escape that by saying that it's going to all be taken care of by some other entities, whether that's extraterrestrial activities or spiritual hierarchies of the ascended masters, or whether it's the president of the United States. I think we to say that we're going to be saved by some outside force is a not that it's a fantasy, but it's a way of abdicating responsibility, personal responsibility. I think it's up to us individually to stand up and say, that if I'm going to be saved, it's up to me to save me. If human culture is human society is going to be saved, then it's up to us to step up and be responsible creatures, right? And to say, okay, we need to we need to take control of what we're doing here and start behaving responsibly. So certainly it's possible, Joe, and certainly it's a really nice story. I would kind of think it would be cool if if the Galactic Federation was having conversations when we move progressively forward into being part of the Galactic Society Federation and all of that kind of stuff that people are talking about. I think that would be very, very cool.
But no, I think it is to do with us, and there's a lot of talk about common law and natural law, and where people are sort of relating to this, and there is people out there. I think more leaders need to step up. We can't rely on someone to save us. We can slowly but surely make those ripple effects to make changes, and that's when more and more people shift and have the courage to go out and say no. That's when those higher powers in governments or in corporates, whatever, will kind of go, okay, we're on the back foot here now. We need to make changes, or we're going to be in deep trouble.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, one individual, whether it's or whether it's you or whether it's me or any other individual on this planet, can step up and be, say, the lightning rod or the public face of a radical change in perspective for a lot of other people. But the mistake I think that we all make when we assign somebody a hero status, if you will, is that we disempower ourselves in that process, right? We say somebody else is look at how wonderful they are and what a wonderful job they are doing, and I'm going to become a follower of that wonderful person. And the whole idea of being a follower of any creed or individual or faith or whatever is at the end of the day, it's disempowering to us as individuals, because we don't really need to be followers. What we need to be is, leaders, if you want to say it that way. Each of us needs to be a sovereign, self-contained, empowered individual going out there into the world and speaking our truths and living our lives and doing what we can to be creative and contributory to our fellow human beings. We can honor and respect other people's work and the path that they've taken, and certainly, people like Trump have stepped up in a way that is beyond what most
True.
people have done. And we can say, yes, I stand behind him, or I support him, or, I think he's doing a wonderful thing for all of us. But, to say, to take away my personal power and give it to him or anybody else, I think is a mistake. I think we need to be each responsible for our own personal evolution, our own personal self-actualization, and our own responsibility to humanity as a whole. I think each, when I change my mind, the world changes, right? So it's up to me to change my perspective, to change myself, to up my game, if you will, in order to be responsible for the change, the elevation of all of humanity. It's up to me.
Yeah, because when we learn more and more about consciousness, we realize that we create our own reality. And
Right.
if in the soup of what the world is, that everything that you project and everything that you see around you is created by your own reality. And I think that's where we will win. And I think that's where we'll survive or thrive in the world moving forward into 2021, is holding fast, holding that belief and knowing that everything is going to be okay. Even
Mhm.
when you think things are not going, just deep inside know. And that's how we'll change the world on it. That's how it'll evolve. And I think that's where we are. We're all here. This is probably, I know there's people out there who are fearful and terrified, and but they don't realize they're probably in the most wonderful time in the world. There's big changes. There's huge
Mhm.
big changes. So it's it's, as I said, this is like in America. There's a civil war going on, um, but it's not muskets. It's PCs.
Yes, exactly. That's a good way to put it. Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, it's cyber, if you will. It's digital, like everything else in the world these days. Um, yeah. So there is not just in America, this civil war going on, a war of ideas, a spiritual war, a war of philosophies, a war between good and evil, however you want to define it. There is definitely a war going on, and it's going on within, I would say, many individuals around the planet, as well, as they struggle to decide whether or not they're going to be um, living in an attitude of fear and trepidation, or whether they're going to step into confidence and love and compassion and understanding. That is a struggle that a lot of people are going through. It's like, oh my God, look at all this shit that's happening out there in the world. It's so scary. Or is, this the most wonderful time to be alive, because all of this stuff is being revealed, and we have the capacity to make a major step upward, whether that's, to use whatever language people are using, from 3D to 5D, or for, unconscious to self-aware consciousness, or whatever the storyline is that people want to use to describe the process we're going through, is that we are, on this ride, if you will, and it's like a very thrilling roller coaster ride. Some people are going to be scared during the ride, and other people are going to be going, yahoo, this is just like the greatest time to be alive, this ride. um, and that's just a matter of personal choice, whether people decide that they want to be afraid, or they want to be like thrilled by the process, and it is thrilling. um, be thrilled by it because it's exciting, and what we're going through is enormous. Like, it's truly enormous, and the battle is real. It is real. There are forces on each side that are fighting for control of the narrative, and control of the future as we move into it. And some of us have become aware of that and are trying to make other people aware of that. And people need to step up and choose, which side do you want to be on? Do you want to be on the side that is governed by fear and trepidation and control freaks and psychopaths and all kinds of other nasty people out there on the planet? Or do you want to be on the side of the nice people, if you will, that are believe in love and compassion and understanding and the elevation of our fellow human creatures? Which side do you want to be on? It's a pretty simple choice.
Yeah, it's, it's, I keep saying to people, my message is fear not. It's, raise that vibration above fear, and all this, it won't really affect you. Like, if we don't listen to mainstream media, and I only realize there's, a COVID when I walk down to the shop and, everyone's wearing a mask. The rest of the time, it's non-existent. You have to find the humor in all this as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. If you can't see the humor in all of the stuff that's going on right now, then you are lost for sure. Because some of it is just so hilarious, it's beyond belief. I smile and chuckle all day, every day at the nonsense. When I'm not involved in doing the stuff that I'm doing, the creative stuff, I pop my head up every once in a while, check into
Yeah.
social media and put my little 2 cents worth out there to see what kind of stuff.
Throw your stones and then run
Yeah,
back. Yeah.
exactly. Throw my pebbles into the pond and see what kind of disturbance I can create. But then I go back to doing what I'm doing, and which is essentially creating material that I believe will be a benefit to my fellow human beings. So
Definitely.
that's what I'm focused on.
Uh, What do from the conversation we've had so far, where do you see it going? Within, I know it's going to take us a decade to sort things out, but what do you think the beginning of the changes will be?
Well, I mean, there's you know, if you want to talk about the political changes, I think it's going to become radically clear to a lot of people that um, the political situation in the world has been um, corrupt and is enormously corrupted by a limited number of individuals on the planet who are, you know, I like to call them control freaks. Psychopaths is a good word, but you know, you say psychopaths, and then you start getting into psychology. These people are not ill; they're not mentally ill, and in the psychopathic way of understanding psychology, they're just bad people. um, and control freaks. So and you can use whatever terminology you want to say, that they're, whether they're Luciferians or Satanists or whatever they you might want to call them. That's fine. Language is language. Call them whatever you want to call them, but they're just bad people. They're control freaks, and they're entirely motivated by their self-interest, and don't mind utilizing masses of other people to their benefit. So people are going to wake up to the fact that the entire, not just one country or another country or Ireland or Canada or United States or China or whatever, is under the influence of these people. But they're going to wake up to the fact that the global political situation is a mess, and it needs to be radically changed. And I think there will be um, a series of revolutions, if you will, not necessarily like, the French Revolution, where people got their heads chopped off and things, but revolutions in the way that people relate to their governors, to being governed, which is a whole concept of, like, why do I need to be governed in the first place? I don't believe I do. If I'm going to be a responsible human being who cares about his fellow human beings, nobody needs to tell me what my morality is. But I do need an infrastructure there that can support not just me, but the fellow citizens of my country in a way that they deserve to be supported, whether that's economically or infrastructure support or whatever. But beyond the political thing, I think the main thing for me is that people need to say, that's enough of me playing small. It's time to take control of myself, to recognize that I have the capacity to become a more elevated type of human being, and I'm going to find a way to move progressively towards that. Self-actualization is what words I like to use a lot. To imagine that there is a higher, better version of Leslie that is available to me if I work at becoming that person. And I think a lot of people need to go and step into that responsibility. So say, what's the best version of me, and how can I get there? And what can I do? What is my responsibility? Participating in the world. Why am I here? What is my purpose? Where can I best contribute? And I think that process is happening all around us, and you see it when people are speaking up, whether it's in social media or what you're doing. You talking about mainstream media. Well, you're Dublin FM, you are mainstream media. So the fact that you're out there with your voice speaking out to the world at large is an important thing, and it's an important choice. And all of that, people escalating their own personal elevation will elevate the collective consciousness of humanity, and we'll move forward from there. And
yeah, I think you've nailed it there, definitely. And that's what it is. It's even speaking out, I notice that I get a couple of people complaining, what are you saying, or what's this? But you might only get 2 or 3 people complaining, and I notice now you'll get 100 people going, thank you. And the 100 people are silent. The complainers are the ones that are out in front, but you have to kind of go, hang on, what are you working on now? What can we get our teeth into and expect for the next decade?
Well, most of my hours, like the absolute majority of the hours that I have in the day, other than when I'm out walking with Jasper in the woods, Jasper the dog, in the woods, is I'm working on content for Delphin World. Creating a series of videos to help people in their journey, to assist them, to wake them up, to empower them to go out and create successful, fulfilling, and contributory lives. So that's most of the dedication that I have right now, is to that process and creating enormous amount of content in there. Hopefully it will become known as the most significant source of self-actualization, empowerment, and success literature in the world. And that's my intent. Yeah, it's all contained in that one website, www.delphin.world. And thanks for the opportunity to give the commercial. But yeah, Delphin World is be all and end all of the content I have available right now.
Just before we wrap up, what advice would you give someone who is exploring their own future and realize someone who's just woken up in the last week or so, God bless them, what would you say to them? Where would you buy your book? Buy my book. Yeah,
well, obviously, obviously, if you want to become a successful, satisfied, fulfilled, happy, prosperous human being, buy my stuff. Obviously. That's absolutely, Joe. That's the best advice I can give. But no, really, the truth of the answer is decide clearly and distinctly, create a vision for what you would like to become, what you would like to have, what you would like to see happen in your world. Create that vision and hold fast to that vision.
Set that intention and believe it.
Yeah, clarity of vision.
The books, are they going on to, I know audio is very big at the moment, are the books going to audio yet, or are you going to hold off with that for a while?
All on Delphin World, buddy.
All on Delphin World. Brilliant. Yeah, your trips didn't happen, unfortunately, because of COVID, but hopefully not next year, maybe the year after, we'll see it over here again for a couple of pints. Oh,
absolutely. I am so looking forward to walking into Sean's bar in Athlone and having a real pint of Guinness again. I'm like, that's just like hanging out there. It's like that wonderful big piece of chocolate cake or something in my future. It's I'm holding that vision for myself.
I think Ireland is like your second home.
Indeed it is. Indeed it is.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you, Joe. I appreciate the offer.
And remember, here at Dublin South FM, we're interviewing plenty of people around the world, conscious leaders, and that's why we have the Conscious Business Podcast, which is part of the Conscious Business Academy, offering purpose, profit and prosperity in your life through soulful selling, mindful marketing, conscious leadership and creative culture. If you want to reach out to me, it's joedalton.ie. You have an awesome week and take care and look after yourself.
You're listening to Joe Dalton on Dublin South FM, Crossing the Rubicon.